Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have a question for the day. The question is, are women right? And what's the rest, Viv?
And men, ... What
And
would a
are
lady
men?
do? No, what would a lady be?
What would a lady be? What would a lady be is the question.
So I had a quick conversation with Tiffany just before we jumped on, as we generally do, just to see what pops for our StreamYards. And it's what's been up in my world is where I've become more aware of where I make myself right and how that creates a fight in my world, because it doesn't create what I desire with whoever it is that I'm fighting to be right with. So it particularly showed up with my partner, and he's a gentleman, and he's like, oh, here we go again type thing, and total allowance and no fight in his world, and there's just no right and wrong, and he just drops his barriers. He's vulnerable, he pulls energy from me, and I'm like, okay, everywhere I need to be right, everywhere I'm fighting for the rightness of my point of view, I destroy and uncreate it all. So, not every one of you may have a man in your life that's like this, or even a friend that can just be that level of space for you. And the humbleness that I have to just go, I'm doing it again. I'm so sorry. I'm doing it again. And so for me, him being the gent actually invites me to be a lady, which doesn't mean I'm right or wrong, but I'm more not making him wrong, because from what I've seen with a lot of women, we have this air of arrogance. We have this almost impulsive, I'm right, and I remember Gary Douglas saying, women are arrogant because they always think they're right. And I'm like, I don't. And I went, oh my God, I've just done it.
But I am.
So
but what do you mean? But we are.
That's my confession for today.
Yeah, and wow, what an amazing gift, like you say, to have someone, being there and being that sort of space, because it's like if there's no fight back, where's the fight?
And the beautiful thing with him is he doesn't need to be right. And he's also worked through a lot of places where he has automatically gone into the wrongness of him, because, and it's this flip-flop between how many of you go into the rightness of your point of view, you unbeknowingly make them wrong. And if they get defensive and start fighting with you, what does that choice create? More fight. There's nowhere to go from that except defending the rightness of your point of view, whatever it is, rather than, well, we can be right or we can be free. And if you made a different choice in that moment, what would be possible? So what would a lady be in that situation? Would she be kind? Would she be vulnerable too? Would she be willing to just go, oh, okay, I'm doing it again, with no judgment, and just, okay, I'm making a different choice now. What else could I choose that would create something greater beyond this?
There's that golden key again question. It's like if I were being a lady here, what could I choose different?
And for me, it's the being, because when you start to get defensive, it's like this trigger reaction where you just, you come out. If you think somebody's making you wrong, putting you into the wrongness, or judging you or accusing you, it's like, how much of that could you actually put your barriers down to and pull energy from them? So when I talk about pulling energy, imagine that you're literally pulling energy from behind the whole of them, through them, like a big magnet, through you and out the back of you, because what that does is it dissolves your barriers, and they don't have anything to push up against. So, a question could be, and I had a great conversation with a friend of mine about this the other day, about being a marshmallow, because, you try and fight a marshmallow.
Exactly. And the question is, as well, as like, are you willing to be wrong? It's like if right and wrong is simply just a point of view, then what if you were willing to be wrong in the places that you're trying to be right? So how many places can you be willing to be wrong where you're trying to be right? And what could be possible then?
What
work
truly
that
would
one
be,
out.
and if you grew up in an environment where fighting was valuable, if you grew up in a home where mum and dad fought, or you fought with your brothers or sisters, or where you just assumed that that was normal, this might be completely new information to people, or if you've grown up in a home that people suppressed and contained and bottled up, it doesn't necessarily have to be fighting externally. You can fight by withdrawing and separating.
Yes. And you can absolutely, and you can fight with yourself internally. And it's like, how often when you have that internal fight going on, it's like, does it create more space and more ease and more possibilities? Or does it not?
That would be a no, Bob.
And if it doesn't, it's like, why are we, it's like, what's the value of creating this? It's like, really, when you choose to function that way, and it is a choice, like everything, then what are you choosing it for? What are you trying to create with that choice?
And something else too that really helped me was, okay, so what do I love about this? Because I kept going to this autopilot. I'd be so present in so many areas of my life, and things would work and things would be fluid, and I could have great, creation with people. And then there would be a handful of people that I just would get my back up about, or I'd just get really reactive or resistant to. And I just went, what do I love about this? Because I'm choosing to maintain the rightness of my point of view. Whatever it was, I didn't have to know what that particular point of view was, but I knew that resistance was feeding the fight. If I'm resisting or reacting to something, somewhere I've already decided that I'm right and that they're wrong. Where do you go with that? There is nowhere. So it's like, right, what do I love about this? If you keep choosing it and creating, or choosing anything in your life, if something keeps showing up time and time again, it's a very bizarre question, because it's like, yeah, but I don't love this. I hate it. And there's the fight. You can see how brilliant we are at tying ourselves in knots.
Yeah.
So you want to look at both sides of the coin. It's like, well, what do I love about this? And if you can acknowledge there must be something you love about it, because you keep choosing it.
Yeah. And the beauty of, this comes up so much between men and women and in relationships. And that's why, for me, I think relationships are such a gift in showing you the places that you would not necessarily be willing to look at or see in yourself, because you don't have someone else there. But, these places come up, and it's like, wow, there is all of, and, I remember the first time Gary Douglas said, you've got to be willing to be wrong. And I was like, oh, I'm totally willing to be wrong. And there are a lot of places that I was, but then really it goes so deep, this stuff, and it can be very subtle too. And it's like, what would a lady be in these situations? She would be totally aware of the subtleties, totally willing to relax the fight, put down barriers, be aware of what the choice will create in the future. It's like, what do you guys know about what your choices will create in the future that you're resisting choosing, that if you would know it and choose it, could create totally different possibilities for you and everyone around you?
And that's that brilliant, Tiff, because when you drop that, like when my partner's just able to drop it, I'm like, oh my God, that's such an inspiration. Can I be that? If you don't have somebody in your life right now that can be that for you, okay, how do I be that for myself?
Yeah.
And the key word that you mentioned is the willingness to be wrong. Doesn't mean you are wrong, doesn't mean you're right, but the willingness to be wrong. There's a real, to me, there's almost an honoring in that, to just go, I'm choosing not to fight. The other person may not be aware of this. They may not be aware of their automatic response systems, or their, they've been made wrong their whole life. Because I think a lot of men totally function from, I'm wrong, because if they've had women in their world that have always made them wrong, they tend to buy that point of view. And I know when I got together with my partner to start with, he was quite worn down by the last relationship he was in, and there was a lot of wrongness, and it's my fault and I'm to blame. there wasn't even a question in his world where, hang on a second, what if there's a different possibility? He, as much as I was going to the autopilot of I'm right, he was also going to the autopilot of I'm automatically wrong.
Yes.
So then I talked to Gary about this. I said, look, you know, what can I be? He said, just ask the question, what can I be him? What can I be to empower him? To empower him. And this is something else the lady does. She looks to empower people.
Mm-hmm. And how many, you know, how many women with their men are not doing that? You know, I see so many women who are like basically beating their men down or grinding them down slowly. And it's like, what does that do for you? And is that what you really would like to create? And if that's going on for you, it's like maybe you actually want to look at, do I still wish to be in a relationship with this person? And if you don't, then change it. But it's like that constant wearing down of a man that so many women do. And, you know, I love, Viv, that you were talking before about the, you know, how he inspires you when he's being like that. And when you're met by someone who's willing to be a leader in that, it gives you so much more choice. There's still the choice to do the fight and the resisting, but there's so much space to choose the non-fight and the non-resistance. And, you know, because it's the same, you know, obviously comes up with Saul and I, and there've even been times where I've gone, because, you know, it's like, what is right and wrong anyway? You know, basically someone's seeing something one way and someone's seeing something another way. So it's like, if you're willing to recognize that there's infinite ways that you can see a situation, it's like, what if you're also willing to look at the way they're seeing it and go, oh, what are you actually seeing here that I'm not? And not to try and align yourself with their point of view and make what you were thinking wrong, but just to go, there are literally infinite ways that you can see a situation. And what if that's just about more and more awareness?
Yeah, and the allowance of, you know, having different opinions. Do you really want to have somebody that thinks the same as you and acts the same as you and does what you do and believes in what you believe in? And, you know, it's like, oh, you know, you would like to have somebody that can maybe talk to you about things or have a different choice or a different perspective to keep that space open as to, wow, yeah, I hadn't seen that. I hadn't. And when you're fighting to be right, you're not willing to receive any other possibility or any other perspective, or even being willing to change something. I mean, the thing is, the one great gift we have is the ability to make, you know, a new choice, to be able to change on a dime. The moment I realize that I'm sorry, I'm doing it again. Okay, I move on, rather than, you know, going into my corner and sulking for 3 days or punishing him or whatever, you know, whatever women do. And I've seen a myriad of things that, you know, as a way of trying to control or separate or be right or whatever. And, you know, what's more valuable to you? A sense of closeness, a sense of creating together, a sense of lightness, or the need to be right. You know, you can be right or free. It's a really simple choice. And, you know, in the heat of the moment, it might not be that easy, but if there's anybody watching this that would like to change it, use some of the questions that Tiff and I have given you today. It's like, okay, what do I love about this? Even good old, how does it get any better than this? The moment you catch yourself doing it.
Yeah, so true.
And know that
you go. No, you keep going.
Well, I was just going to say, and even just the acknowledgement of, oh, there it is again. Okay, no judgment, no right or wrong. Right, what other choice do I have here? How does it get better than this?
And if there was no such thing as right or wrong, what can I choose?
Yes.
So I was just going to say, you know, there's a podcast that's just come out, one of Shannon O'Hara's podcasts, talking to her dad, Mr. Gary Douglas, who's the founder of the work that, you know, Viv and I both do, Access Consciousness. So we'll also pop a link to that podcast episode in the Ladies Lounge too, because it's brilliant, and it really goes into this this conversation about fight and a whole bunch of other really cool stuff too. So.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal call. So thank you, Miss Tiffany.
Thank you. We now have another date with another lady friend, Miss Alicia. So Thanks for being here, everyone. And yeah, if there were no right and there were no wrong, what else could be possible?
What would you choose? And like you said earlier, what will create the future that you desire to have? Mwah! See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, I don't know how to stop this thing all of a sudden. Hang on a second. Oh, it's because all my notifications have hidden the button. All right, now we're really going. Bye.
Bye.